Tonight's homework was order of operations and rational numbers. And hopefully you guys found this as much fun to do as I did. I know that sometimes there's a little bit of steps in these, but just be careful to follow your rules and you'll do all right. So looking at problem 1, we had quite a few things going on here. First, we had something inside our parentheses, and since parentheses is first in our PEMDAS order of operations, I'm going to deal with that. 3.1 minus 4. And if you need to, you can still rewrite it using our additive inverse. 3.1 plus negative 4, so that you remember that negative 4 is the larger term, but it is negative. So our solution, when we subtract when we find the difference between these two, will be negative. So now I'm going to find the difference. 4.0 minus 3.1. Borrow from my 4, and we will have 10 minus 1 is 9. 4 minus 3 is, 3 minus 3 is 0. And we said it was going to be negative. And so as I've said in class, make sure that you take this piece of information and plug it right in where you pulled it from. So I'm going to have 5.8 minus 2 times negative 0.9. And so now I'm going to multiply, because multiplying is lower down on my order of operations, but it still is before subtracting. So 2 times 0.9. And since we have one decimal place here, we need to move our decimal over 1 unit. And we multiplied by negative 0.9, so our solution when we multiply a positive times a negative is still negative. And so I need to plug this in exactly where I took it out. I took it out of this section right there. So I will now have 5.8 minus, and if it helps you can put this in parentheses, negative 1.8. Now I see a minus and negative happening here. And I like to circle them just to help myself understand what's going on. And then I write a plus above them, because I can still see the negative signs in case I'm curious of why I added these two numbers together. But I give myself the plus to remind myself what operation is actually taking place. So that now is 5.8 plus 1.8. 8 and 8 is 16. Carry the 1. 5, 6, 7. Drop down our decimal place right in line. So our final solution for this problem is 7.6. Yes, there were multiple steps. And you're going to want to show all of your steps if you plan on getting any partial credit. Otherwise, if you try to skip steps and jump straight to the end, your answer might be wrong, or it might be even close to being right. But if it's not exactly right, I don't know where to give you partial credit. So I would suggest that you show all of these little pieces so that I can give you credit where it's due, even if you don't get to this final answer. Let's look at another problem. Let's do number 6 together. 6 is a great problem for when we were talking about our properties, because 6 has a problem. Let me see where it's at. Oh. 6 is essentially multiplying all these terms together. And one of the things I've noticed is that 2 of these terms are decimals, and the rest of them are whole integers. And so what I want to do is I want to use my commutative property, essentially, which tells me that A times B is equal to B times A. In other words, when I'm multiplying a bunch of different numbers together, it doesn't matter what order those numbers are in. The solution will still be the same. So I'm going to take the 4.1 and the 3.2 and move them to the front. 1. 3.1 times negative 2 times negative 2 minus 1. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to deal with both of those decimals first. 4.1 times 3.1. 1 and 1 is 1. 1 and 4 is 4. Bring down a 0. 3 and 1 is 3. 3 and 4 is 12. So now I'm adding up my values. 4 and 3 is 7. 2, 1. I had 2 decimal places in my original problem, so I moved my decimal place over 2 points. So these two numbers multiplied together equal 12.71. The next thing I'm going to do is clean up this set of parentheses here. Negative 2 minus 1. And again, that can be rewritten using additive inverse, negative 2 plus negative 1. Which makes it even clearer, if you didn't see it already, that we are going further into the negatives. 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3. So now I have 12.71 times negative 2 times negative 3. And again, we're still dealing with just multiplication of 3 different terms. So I'm going to take the next two that are easiest, negative 2 times negative 3, and multiply them. 2 negatives when multiplied together are positive, and 2 times 3 is 6. So now I've gotten myself down to 2 terms, and these will be really easy to multiply. 12.71 times 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 4 is 16. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Again, our original problem had 2 decimal places in that number, or in that term, so we're going to move our decimal place over 2 digits. So our solution would be 76.26. The real key to these problems is to be careful to make sure that you take things in little steps. Don't try to solve everything at once, but just try to find little chunks that you compare together that are consistent with your order of operations rules. And then try not to make mistakes when you're multiplying, dividing, subtracting, or adding. And I think you'll do all right.